It's Vegan Freak Radio number 98 for the 5th of August, 2008.
Coming to you from high atop their elite fortress of moral superiority, here are your protein-deficient hosts, Bob and Jenna.
Hey everybody, this is Bob.
And Jenna.
We're back again for another week of Vegan Freak Radio. This week on the show we have something of a different format for you.
We are talking about cooking and food.
Cooking!
Cooking!
You okay over there?
I'm fine.
Okay. We're talking about cooking and food. We have 3 different interviews for you today, each of them being about 20 or so minutes long, from 3 different cookbook authors. We've got Dreena Burton on the show coming up first. After Dreena, we have Joy Tienzo, who has a book coming out with Tofu Hound Press in just a few short months. And after that, we talked to Dino again. We haven't talked to Dino in a very long time.
We have not.
And what we asked each of them to do was kind of to talk a little bit about the kinds of things they've been making lately, some ideas for cooking, and we talked to each of them about not only their philosophy on cooking, but also kind of some issues around cooking and food. So with Dreena, we talked about some questions around local food, and with Joy, we talked about the importance of cooking for vegans, and how essential it is for vegans to get out there and cook. And with Dino, we just talked about how new cooks can kind of get into some cooking.
Exactly. And so each of them takes a little bit different slant on what they're cooking now and what's important to them. And so it's really interesting to hear the difference between the 3 of them.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
I thought you were going to say something.
No, sorry.
I didn't want to interrupt. So a little bit different show this week because we figured we had an hour of interviews that we aren't going to do voicemails and emails and do our normal ranting and rambling on and on and on about the traditional kinds of crap that we ramble on and on about.
Right. But I just want the Australian listeners to know that we took, extra steps to make sure that they addressed something that you, at this time of the year, which is not summer where you are.
Not just Australian.
Okay,
well,
Southern Hemisphere.
Okay.
Southern Hemisphere. But most of our Southern Hemisphere listeners tend to be from Australia.
We do get an awful lot. So many of our listeners are in Australia. I don't even understand. We're big in Australia. I don't know why. I don't know how that happened, but we're big in Australia, and I'm believe me, I'm not happy about it, but yeah. So we know where our listeners are, and we like to make sure that they're taken care of.
Exactly.
So we try not to have a Northern Hemisphere centric show today.
Yes, we're trying.
So our listeners in South America, Africa, do we have any? Yeah, South Africa. Yeah. Our listeners in Africa, South America, and the Pacific
Rim. The Southern Pacific Rim.
Now we have kept you in mind.
There you go.
So anyway, like I said, 3 different interviews, and they're coming at you in just a second here. So anything you want to add to the things?
No,
with the interviews?
Just enjoy.
Yeah, and we have little musical interludes
Yes.
between interviews that begin them and end them. So you have a little break, so you can kind of know where the breaks are. Anyway, we'll be back after the interviews are over, 3 in a row. Sit down, get out a piece of paper, write down some great stuff. Oh, and another thing, for those of you that are on our email list, I'm going to enclose some of these recipes that Dino
Dreena.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
The Dino and Dreena comes out.
There you go, Dina.
Yes. The Dino and Dreena have given me permission. Woo. Sorry, I just ate dinner and now I'm sleepy. Anyway, they've given me permission to send these recipes to you, so I will enclose those in our little, weekly show announcement thing to those of you that do that, and they'll be on the site and stuff. So
yeah, and Joy has already put up the recipes on her website, so
everything will be available
yes.
by the time you're listening to this. So anyway, enjoy. All right, it's our great pleasure to be here yet again with Dreena Burton. We've had Dreena on the show several times in the past, for those of you that have listened to Vegan Freak Radio for a while now. But we thought we could get Dreena back on the show to talk about what she's been cooking and maybe some ideas and tips and just to catch up. As many of you should know, or I hope you know, Dreena is the author of Eat, Drink, and Be Vegan and several other cookbooks, and she does a blog, and she's been on Food TV, and she's been on all kinds of things. So welcome back to Vegan Freak Radio, Dreena.
Thank you, Bob and Jenna, for having me back.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
To chat with you.
Yeah, so I guess, in Vancouver, the weather's, perhaps not as summery as in other parts, but what have you been cooking lately?
Well, we're really, really fortunate because we, despite the weather, despite the fact that it's chilly and drizzly, we have a couple of local markets, farmers markets that we have access to, and one's pretty much down our street, and we go there every Sunday and pick up lots of fresh organic produce, and it's just great because you can see the difference when you pick it up at the farmer's market. You can just see the difference and feel it. Like if you pick up a zucchini, you can feel how much, fresher it is, and if you pick up chard, you can see the color, and it's so vibrant, and the leaves are so crisp, and so it's just incredible to pop there. And then there's another local farm that we go to once a week. We've just been sort of going back there and picking up things from them. So it's been, I love this time of year because it's just so much of an abundance of produce, and I don't myself cook a lot of meat analogs and that kind of thing, so I just really love to use the produce that's out there. And one of our favorites right now is there's some local organic portobello mushrooms, and they're huge. They look like they're steroid mushrooms, but they're not. You would think that they're conventional because they're so big. And we've been making. We got a barbecue this year. It's the first year we've had a barbecue, and you would think maybe that how much cooking I do, I would have a barbecue, but. I used to just haul our little indoor grill outside and use that, but we have a barbecue, and so I've been doing portobello burgers, and I just simply I let them marinate for about, maybe a half hour in some olive oil and some balsamic, and I use my kitchen rasp, and I grate garlic into the marinade, and I just whiz it around, and then when I let them marinate, and when I get them on the grill, put some salt and pepper on them, and continue to sort of baste them in that.
Wow.
And they're incredible, because they soak up all the marinade. And, of course, people have always heard of portobellos as sort of like the meat of mushrooms, But they are in that sense that you can put a whole mushroom on a bun or, in a pita or something and make it, a full burger as such. And one of our daughters, who's never liked mushrooms, she just loves them, and she's never, ever taken a bite of a mushroom. Well, she's taken a bite and spit it out. And now she really loves them. So we've been doing that a lot, and that's been just excellent. And then pestos and things like that. It's just been lots of good food to take advantage of.
Nice. What do you like to do with the chard that you find?
I love, there was a time when I would saute greens a lot, like kale and chard, and I just sort of saute them in, say, a little bit of olive oil with garlic, and then maybe some sesame oil and turmeric or something like that. And I tend to do that in the winter. Or in this time of year, I just like chopping it really fine and putting it in salads. Because if you, I like to get as many greens as I can in my diet. And there was a time I was doing lots of green smoothies, which I still do sometimes. I use, kale or spinach or chard and blend them up with, say, frozen bananas and a little squeezed lemon and water and mangoes or some orange juice, things like that. You need lots of sweetness to kind of counterbalance the green. But now I love just chopping them really finely and making like a big salad and putting some sprouts and that in there. And at the farmer's market that we go to, they also have like a mix of greens, and it's just incredible. And just chop it up finely, because sometimes some of the greens are really strong if you get one big piece. But if you chop it finely and mix it with some other milder lettuces, then, it's quite good.
That makes a lot of sense, because I find that kale is way too bitter to eat to raw for my taste. So
doesn't bother me raw. But, you mentioned earlier that your daughter doesn't like mushrooms, but do you have other kinds of kid-friendly recipes that you've been making lately, or do you just generally feed your children, what you're eating?
I try to do what we eat. I don't want to be like making something separate for them, but I will modify things for them because, it's just basic fact that kids have stronger sensation of taste in their palate than we do. And I remember hearing someone speak about this, and I can't remember the numbers, but it was something like the number of taste buds they have is like there's probably something like 10 or 20,000 more there in their mouths than we have. So they pick up the taste of bitterness in greens and the intensity of garlic and the the sour and the bitter tones much more intensely than we do. So we expect them to like it. Like we give them spinach, or we give them broccoli and just try it and eat it. And many times it's just too unpleasant for them. And it's actually something that I've also heard and explained by a doctor that I went to, that it's almost a protective thing in nature, that some bitter greens can be poisonous. And so from many, many years ago in evolution and people wandering through fields and eating, etc., that certain ones were poisonous, and it's a protective thing for kids to not want to eat these things. So as we get older and our palates develop, okay, well, we accept them and enjoy them, and we learn to like them more so. But for kids, a lot of things they just don't like. So if I'm making pastas and I have a lot of garlic in it, I'll usually take out some pasta first and mix it with olive oil and maybe a bit of tamari, and then I put a little bit of our sauce into it, and then dose up heavy on ourselves, because for me, I love pesto, and I will just use dollops of it in my own serving, but they would never swallow that. So I try to modify for them sometimes on certain things they love to eat. Like last night, I made something from Eat Drink. It was the cashew ginger tofu.
Oh, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
and I never thought that they'd really like it, because the sauce is not really subtle. I mean, you can put a fair amount of ginger and garlic in there, but they really like that one. So sometimes they surprise me, and other times food goes down the trash bin or something. But I do modify. I won't make something completely different.
Speaking of eat, drink, and be vegan, I made the other day for a potluck we went to the berry apple grunt.
Oh yeah,
it was so good.
Oh, nice.
I really liked it, and it's a traditional Atlantic Canadian dish.
It is. There's some other ones that we could get into, traditional Newfoundland dishes. I was talking to my girls yesterday because certain things, again, they wouldn't want to eat, and I said, well, you can get vitamin A from the carrot, or you can get it from cod tongues. Now, when we grew up, we used to eat cod tongues. And they were looking at me like, Mom's evil. So, my daughter said, no, I'll have the carrot. But, that is very traditional, because blueberries grow wild in Newfoundland, and Newfoundland has doesn't have certain crops just are not prone to growing in Newfoundland, so that it tends to be real hardy things and winter vegetables, root vegetables. But blueberries grow very easily, and so we used to always blueberry pick as kids, and it's very much part of our childhood. And blueberry recipes, blueberry grunt, and all kinds of blueberry pies and muffins and things like that. But I'm glad you made that. It's very seasonal now.
Yeah, exactly. The blueberries are in season now. So
where
does the name come from?
The idea is that, and it doesn't really, to me, this hasn't never happened, but when you put the batter into the blueberries, that it's supposed to make sort of like a grunty or squeaky sound when you're cooking, and that years ago in the pots it would sort of, I think, make the lid move and make a bit of
okay.
Yeah. Well, I've never heard it growl or anything. So.
Could you explain to people? I mean, because we're all assuming that everyone knows what a grunt is, and we've kind of described it, but it's actually something that I've never had before. So maybe you could describe it.
Oh yeah, okay. So you make it's a berry dish with sort of a batter topping, and you make it by you simmer the berries, and you can kind of do a different combination of berries. Like this one has mostly blueberries and apple, but you can do raspberries or strawberries or other things if you like. Or even plums and peaches, whatever. And you make a base of simmering those fruits with a little bit of like water and some sweetener and seasoning if you want. And then you make a batter, much like how you would make, say, muffins. And then you drop spoonfuls of the batter into the simmering berry mixture, and then cover it, and it will cook in the berries, and it's sort of, part of it gets a little bit of soaking of the berries, and the other part is on top and stays just the batter on its own. And then you scoop it up and serve it with some ice cream. And
it's tremendous. So maybe we could switch gears for a second, because we've been working under the assumption here that it's summer everywhere in the world, yet I would say like probably a good half of our listeners are in Australia. And it's not summer in Australia.
No, it's not.
So maybe, do you have any good winter dishes you can recommend to our Australian listeners who maybe have a little bit of that chill going on that you're experiencing right now?
I mean, I'm having tea right now, so I've always got my tea whenever it's cold or drizzly. But I mean, again, I always look to what's kind of coming into the season and what's in what's in your markets that's plentiful and looking good. Things like winter squashes and root vegetables and things also like pomegranates. I mean, I love taking the seeds of pomegranates, and usually you sort of think of pomegranates in terms of sweet things and drinks and the martinis and things like that. But I love using the seeds and putting them in a salad.
That's good.
Because it's wintertime, especially when the salad, you're looking for lettuces and things, and it tends to be a little bit slimmer pickings. Kind of freshens up the salads when they get a little bit boring that time of year. And then if you're serving that with, I love roasting root vegetables more than anything. And I will roast them and either work that into a soup, like if I'm doing, say, parsnip. Parsnip and fennel is a really good combination. I have a soup recipe in Everyday Vegan for pureed parsnip and fennel soup. And if people don't like fennel because it has that strong licorice taste, we'll try roasting it or sautéing it, because it becomes really soft and mellow and caramelized. It's just incredible. And I really like the parsnip fennel combination. So you could like try roasting those things on a pan and then pureeing them into a sauce or a soup. You can do the same thing with butternut squash or say beets and leeks and carrots and things like that. So it's kind of getting the best out of what you can that time of year. And I really love roasting squashes too, because they're easier to work with. Like if you roast a whole butternut squash, then it's really easy to cut it open and scoop out all the flesh and make it into a soup or a sauce or something. Whereas when you have to cut into it, it's really hard. They're really hard to work with.
They are.
When they're raw. Yeah, so that's certainly one idea. Soups are sort of a mainstay, but for sure get used to working with the root vegetables that time of year.
I saw on your blog the other day, too, that you were talking about some Christmassy spice flavors, and I think it was a dessert that you made.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because I start a lot of new recipes. I get bored with retesting because I get an idea and I want to do it right away. And I can be super busy and not have everything prepared for it and not have all the ingredients around, but I get it fixed in my mind and I want to work on it. And so I had tested this recipe a couple of times back in around Christmas. It's an orange chai cream pie. And we had it at Christmas dinner, and it was really delicious. And then I tested it again, and then I just kind of forgot about it. And then I was going through my archives of pictures, and I went, oh, yeah, I have that one I still need to work on. And I posted on my blog, and everyone seemed to be quite interested in the idea. And I thought, well, I've got to just get back to testing it, because it was pretty easy to do. But I do sort of go in and out of phases with recipes like that, because I want to move on and try new things. And, so that's certainly a seasonal one. And I did have a recipe, too, that I should put it on my blog, because it was it was one I had done for Veg News, and I remember testing it in the summer because the issue was then coming out in the winter, and it was a chickpea tart done with spinach and walnuts. And that's a very good festive kind of wintry type of meal. So I should get that back up on my blog for people.
Yeah, that sounds good. Excellent.
So cool. Anything else you wanna chat about quickly here, or any other words of advice you have for any budding cookers out there or long-term experienced cooks?
Well, I mean, I think I know a lot of people are wondering, because I'm constantly posting new recipes, and I think they're wondering a lot what I'm doing with them. And I just want to tell them I'm just not sure now, because I would love to do another book. I'm not sure when I'm going to do it, because once I sort of put it out there, I'll have a deadline to work towards, and things are pretty busy still for me as a mom, and so I'm not sure what I want to do. And the other thing I'd like to do is, because I've had my blog running for a while, and I've been doing the cookbooks, and I'd sort of like to switch things up a little bit, and I'd really like to get into doing some cook videos and maybe putting them on YouTube.
Oh, cool.
Excellent.
That's great.
Yeah, because I know people enjoy seeing the process, even when I can post pictures of things and show them the process within a recipe or something. They really enjoy that, and I think people need to see that, you know, it can be done fairly easily more in video. So I'd like to get into that. I just have to get organized with it and get the camera and all that kind of thing.
I think that's phenomenal, because one thing I found in talking to a lot of new vegans is that some people go vegan and they know how to cook, but a lot of people go vegan and they feel intimidated by the whole process of cooking, even what I would consider to be fairly simple things. And sometimes I find that I'm surprised by that. So I think if you had instructional videos and pictures and things like that, people would really get into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have a good friend who's vegan, and she wasn't when I met her, and she was vegetarian, but she wasn't vegan, and she became because her son was having dairy allergies, and they were really bad, like his skin was breaking out in eczema, and she eventually just was sort of, you know, going that way, and we'd been friends for a while, so she knew, obviously, about my cookbooks and that, and she'd been trying things, and she said to me, I always thought it was much harder than this. Like, I always thought it would be really difficult to make something, and, you know, when I try a recipe and I make a soup, or I made some cookies the other day, and oh my gosh, they were so easy, like, that's, she's always saying that kind of thing. Like, I can't believe, even now, she's been vegan for a while, like, at least, I think, a couple of years, and she's like, I just can't believe how easy it is. So that's really true, Bob. It's like there is that perception still that it's very complicated.
Yeah, I'm glad to see you overcoming that. And I know, you know, working on a book is a lot of work, so it's nice to have the room to explore different ways and different venues for kind of, you know, getting those ideas out there and still being creative without having to really put yourself through the ringer of a book. Yeah,
and I mean, there's a lot of, you know, like, sort of just intrinsic reward in doing a book. Like, it feels good to produce it and put it out there. But it's, you know, I've done 3 now, and I sort of feel like, well, maybe it's time to do something different. So I might do that. And I've also been kind of tinkering with ideas of doing a little bit of local food production of maybe just some baked goods or dips, spreads, that kind of thing. So my husband and I are talking about some different ideas. We want to do a little bit of local, like we'd like to get a little plot of, you can rent these areas of land to do your own farming.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like plot shares. So we're kind of thinking of we have no idea how to farm. None, but we figure we know a couple of organic farmers now that we might be able to get some, you know, some advice and just grow a few things on our own.
Well, in talking to the person who runs our CSA, even if you do know something about farming, it's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
But
yeah, and it's a lot of work, but there's it's just something. We've been growing a lot of herbs in that in our garden, and I've got a lot of basil now, and I never thought I could grow basil, so I'm kind of encouraged by that. And, it's just something we're interested in. We were watching a program the other night about, you know, fuel costs and how a lot of communities and people are starting to just grow their own bits of produce here and there and relying more on themselves. And I thought it was interesting because I was watching it, and I thought about you guys because it's like they were talking about, oh, you know, we need to be able to feed ourselves and not rely on, you know, our food coming from so many miles away and from different countries. And I thought, but who's going to go slaughter their own chicken?
That's always been my thought too.
Yeah.
It's so much easier if you just grow your own vegetables.
Yeah, and that's all they were talking about. And they were there, and this guy was, you know, talking about his tomatoes and his lettuce, and I thought, but you're not just eating that, like unless you're vegan, and even still, even you're vegan, you're eating grains and beans and things like that. And I thought, are you going to have your own cow up there and you're going to milk that? And it's just interesting because there's a shift in sort of like thinking about food, and yet people are tending to, you know, they want to buy the local organic and do their own thing, and yet, you know, they're still doing their meat and dairy.
But I still think there's a lot of possibility within that moment. I mean, I think moments like that offer up a chance to kind of create a space where you can talk about different alternatives. So I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, because there is certainly, like, you can see, I mean, I go to my market, and there's that stall that I go to, there's a lineup every Sunday morning. there's people lined up before it even opens, and it's down to the sidewalk. It's like probably 30 people deep, and I think there's there's other stalls there, but they're not organic, and so there's definitely a feeling like we need to be taking care of our food and taking care of our soil and just a general feeling of changing how we've been doing things. And
I hope so.
I think it's starting to carry over, but then I have to tell you this. I know I'm running on, but I have to tell you.
No, it's okay.
So I'm at the stall, and I'm getting some, picking out my chard and getting my zucchini and stuff, and I hear this older lady at the market, and she says, she was talking to somebody, and she says, no, I'm vegan. No, I'm vegan. And I was like, cool, this lady's vegan. And I was looking at her, and I was like, wow, she's got to be like probably 65 or something. She said, unless the eggs are free range. And I wanted to go over and like have it out with her, but I was like, no, I get in too many fights with seniors right here. So I'm not going to take on any seniors anymore. And I was like, oh, that just so got to me. It's like, because that, it's like, that's okay now. But anyway.
It's frustrating.
It is.
I thought of you guys. I was just like, oh, they'd love this.
It's really frustrating, too, because that happens a lot. It happens a lot.
Yeah. It's like, I'm vegan. I was like, well, no, you're not.
Not quite.
No.
Not quite. Well, I think that's about all we have for today, and we really appreciate you coming on. Can you mention, again, your blog and all that stuff where people can find more information about you and buy your cookbooks, which certainly get a lot of use around our house?
Oh, thank you. My blog is vivelavegan.blogspot.com, and I post like a couple of times a week there, and then they can email me, Dreena@everydayvegan.com. And then my books, they should be available at local stores, and of course they're on Amazon and, online sources like that as well. But, thanks for having me on. Sorry I rambled on. I get carried away when I talk about food.
You were not rambling at all.
My husband's heard enough already, so.
It's our pleasure to have you on, and we're happy to hear your thoughts on it. I mean, it's great. That's why we invite you back. So, Dreena, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It is our great pleasure to be here with Joy Tienzo, and a lot of you, we've hinted over the last couple months that we have a cookbook coming out with Tofu Hound, and we've kind of dropped little hints here and there, but it is our great pleasure to have Joy on the show to talk about her new book that is coming out in a couple months, talk about some ideas that she has, and Joy is, of course, the author of the book, upcoming book, Cook, Eat, Live, Vegan Recipes from Everyday to Exotic, and that'll be available this fall from Tofu Hound Press. Joy has worked as a cake designer, a pastry cook, and a cooking instructor, and she enjoys hosting friends and family at her vegan table. Her internationally influenced food emphasizes fresh whole ingredients and bright flavors, and features recipes ranging from buttermilk onion rings, which look fantastic, to cardamom crepes, with coconut gelato, pistachios, and vegan orange blossom quote-unquote honey. And I also have to say, having done some of the testing for the cookbook, that Joy has the best recipe that I've ever had for vegan mac and cheese. Like, it tastes like my mom's mac and cheese from when I was growing up. It is amazing. So, welcome to the show, Joy.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be on.
And it's our great, it's really our pleasure to have you. I'm wondering if you could maybe tell us a little bit more about your cookbook that's coming out later this fall, early winter.
Yes. Well, as the subtitle suggests, it's food from everyday to exotic. So we have some really normal, simple things like granola and graham cracker and Caesar salad, and then some more exotic stuff like mofongo with cilantro lime gremolata. That's a Puerto Rican-inspired dish, and gremolata is Italian. Mediterranean rolls, which are like sushi rolls, but with grape leaves instead of the traditional nori. Risotto dorato, which is a golden risotto with asparagus, white asparagus, and sautéed oyster mushrooms, and just so many internationally inspired recipes, and also some very basic stuff.
Excellent.
Yeah, I have to say, whenever I read your recipes, I just drool, really.
Thank you.
Because, and not only, I mean, like you say, range from everyday to the exotic. I mean, I think you really emphasize using the fresh ingredients, and that really makes it great.
Absolutely.
And a lot of what I like about your recipes, one of the things that drew us to your book was the whole, well, in a sense, I mean, you've got a range of food in there, but a lot of the food is really perfect for entertaining. It's really perfect for when you want to make a nice meal for friends and family. And I really like that aspect of it, and the fact that it draws on so many kind of different and diverse. God, I'm losing my train of thought here. Different and diverse. I don't know. I don't want to say cultures, backgrounds. What's the word, Jenna?
Culinary traditions.
There you go.
Thank you.
So, anyway, maybe you could along those lines tell us what the kinds of things you've been cooking lately, or some ideas that you have for kind of summer cooking.
Well, this is the perfect time for entertaining. For those of us in the northern hemisphere for whom it is summer, it's the perfect time to cook outdoors on a grill, to invite people over, to just have a good, relaxed time, and to enjoy your guests. And I think a lot of times that vegans are reticent to entertain because, maybe we just don't know how to cook just like anybody else, or we're intimidated by having omnis over, we don't know what to serve them, that kind of thing. And I think it really does omnis a disservice because most of us don't have a lot of fantastic vegan or vegetarian restaurants nearby. I'm fortunate enough to have that, but most of us don't. So omnis never get to taste really good vegan food. And we're sort of the link, I think, between good food and omnivores, and it's kind of our responsibility, in a sense, to bring that to them. So entertaining gives you a great opportunity just to do that.
It's such a good point, too, because I was just talking the other day with someone on our little stupid internet chat room, and she was saying that her co-op, I was with Evita anyway, her co-op has vegan food, but that it's really horrible. It's like cardboard, brown, just the kind of thing that people think of when they think of vegan food. This is the kind of stuff her co-op's serving, and she thinks it's such a disservice to veganism. And I think that point you raise is so vital.
And, vegan food, I think, shouldn't even be labeled as such. It shouldn't be a separate category. It should be a completely normalized thing. I think for me, I don't really see why the dairy and egg industries have had such a monopoly over these terms that are just food terms. Like I consume milk and I consume cheese, but it's coconut milk and cashew cheese. And so I think part of that is just taking that back and normalizing the way that we live as vegans and making really good food.
Hell yeah.
So today's sort of menu is a mostly make-ahead meal that features a simple Italian salad, grilled pizza with some assorted toppings, and finishes with an Italian cornmeal cake.
Oh, man.
Wow.
But it sounds, very sophisticated and lovely, but it's really simple, and you can make a lot of it in advance. And your guests actually do a lot of the work, so it's hard to mess up.
Oh, that's kind of nice,
Perfect.
too, because it gets your guests involved in the process of making the dinner. And I like that, too, because it kind of breaks down some of the formality that sometimes comes with a dinner party.
Yeah, if you're not used to having people over, this is a really great initiation to having that.
So how would it go? I mean, can you tell us a little bit about the salad and the pizza and all that?
The meal begins with a simple Italian salad that features marinated vegetables. So first, you start with some balsamic mushrooms. That's just a container of mushrooms. I think that's 6 ounces or something like that. And you can use cremini mushrooms, button mushrooms, whatever you see in the market. Halve the mushrooms and toss them with balsamic vinegar, chopped garlic, salt, pepper, some dried basil, dried oregano, and red pepper. And if you want to toss in some extra virgin olive oil, you can do that too. And marinate those at room temperature for 15 to 30 minutes. And next, some quick pickled red onions. This is one of my favorite things to put in a salad. And it's just thinly sliced red onion that you kind of tease apart with your fingers, and some apple cider vinegar, which I just love for its brightness and its ability to add some tang to a dish, and salt and a little bit of agave nectar, or whatever sweetener you prefer. And that marinates also at room temperature for 15 to 30 minutes. And the pickled red onions are great because it really mellows the flavor of the onions. If you don't like onions, try this one because they're nice and soft and this gorgeous fuchsia color, and it'll really draw you in.
Excellent. That sounds perfect for me because I hate raw onions.
Oh, try these.
So, okay,
Try
cool.
them.
See, I always feel bad for you, Jenna, because I like raw onions and I eat them a lot. Sorry, go ahead.
So while you're waiting for those to marinate, you want to assemble the salad, and you'll just need about 8 cups of romaine lettuce. I like romaine because it's crisp and cheap and easy. And some basil that you've torn into little pieces. Tearing it keeps it from bruising as much as if you're cutting it. And toss these together, the basil and romaine. It's really nice to have the interest of these peppery, green, dark bites of basil in the midst of fairly bland romaine lettuce. So that's a nice counterbalance there. Top that with some tomatoes, whatever you see that's good in the market. If it's Romas or grape tomatoes or cherries, or we have the most gorgeous heirloom tomatoes these days that I've been eating like 5 of every day. And put those on it, if you get the chance. Some halved black olives, and of course the balsamic mushrooms and the quick pickled red onion. So you can arrange those on concentric circles on the top, and just top that with a few tablespoons of pine nuts. Cover that with plastic, and you can refrigerate it for up to 8 hours. So you can do it first thing in the morning, and then just pull it out when you're ready to serve. And for a dressing, this is the easiest part. When you marinate the mushrooms and the red onion, they're going to exude and weep some liquid. So just reserve that and whisk in some extra virgin olive oil and a little bit of Dijon mustard if you like for an emulsifier, although you can skip that too, and set that aside until you're ready to serve.
Man.
So easy, simple salad.
Definitely.
That sounds fantastic.
Nice.
So you're going to post these recipes on your blog, right?
Yes, they'll be available on my blog, and I'll go into more detail there, and you can also write in the comments if you've got any questions about them.
And what's your blog address in case there's someone listening at their computer right now and they want to just hop over and have a peek?
It is veganjoy.blogspot.com.
Cool. So I didn't want to interrupt, but I don't want someone sitting there listening and trying to scribble down all this stuff furiously when they could just go to a blog and check it out.
Yeah, they can find me there. So for the grilled pizza, this is such a great thing to serve at a gathering of people because they can choose what they want. Again, you're not responsible if somebody puts a crazy combination on their pizza or if it doesn't come out exactly perfect. And you can be as simple or as elaborate as you want. You can just offer 3 toppings or you can offer 15. It's up to you. So you'll need 32 ounces of pizza dough. This is enough for 4 people. You'll quarter it, and you can just multiply it by however many people you've got. Some assorted toppings, which we'll talk about more in a moment, and garlic-infused olive oil. Now, this is the greatest thing because it's just olive oil, garlic, herbs, salt, and pepper whisked together and left to sit at room temperature for about 30 minutes. And it's great because you can use it for garlic toast, just brushed on bread and grilled, drizzle it over mashed potatoes. For a garlicky salad dressing, just whisk in some vinegar. Really simple, nice to have on hand. So now for the toppings. You can be as conventional as you want here with, red onions, capers, artichoke hearts, or you can do something a little bit more artful, which we'll talk about. First, determine whether you want your pizza to be marinara or bianca. That's white pizza, just with that lovely garlic-infused olive oil. And give guests a choice, a bowl of marinara and a container of that. And I like to put everything out in small bowls with spoons so that people can help themselves. And if you've got really exotic ingredients that you might not know what they are in first glance, it's nice to just make a little tent card with a piece of paper, handwrite on it what it is, and fold it up there.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And because people will start going so fast, once the pizza starts going, it goes quickly. So it's nice to have some wet wipes or damp towels available because sometimes people will grab with their hands, and you want to be able to clean that off. It sounds really distasteful as I'm talking about it, but when it happens, it's actually a nice, table sort of situation. So for a really hearty and substantial pizza topping, you can lay thinly sliced cooked potatoes on top of the crust and capers and fresh rosemary. That's with that garlic-infused olive oil. I know a lot of people don't think about potatoes and pizza because it's so rich in carbohydrates, but it tastes wonderful, so please do try it sometime. For a great Thai-inspired pizza, top the crust with peanut sauce, some strips of seitan, thinly sliced carrots, bean sprouts, and cilantro. Now, I know that a lot of people on the forums are not fans of cilantro. So
They're crazy.
They
Screw
are.
them.
they are to the re-education camps,
That's
right?
right.
That's ridiculous.
Exactly.
We have a camp for those kind of people.
So you can use mint here if you like, finely sliced mint. And in other usages, you can substitute parsley, flat leaf parsley for it. And for anything that requires cooking, like the potatoes or seitan, you want to cook that beforehand because the heat from the grill really is not hot enough to cook it.
So how do you cook a pizza on the grill?
We'll get to that right
okay.
after I go through
Sorry.
the toppings. And it's really neat. It goes so quickly, and it seems intimidating, but it's really not. So for a great Greek-style pizza, you can use grilled eggplant, red onion, black olives, and dollops of hummus. You could spread the hummus on if you like, but I really like biting into those garlicky, barely warmed through bits of hummus. For a great garlicky pizza, just roast some garlic, right in the head, squeeze it out, and use a spatula alongside to spread it directly onto the crust. Top that with arugula, red roasted peppers, artichoke hearts, and white beans if you like.
Jenna's having some kind of transcendental, looks like near sexual experience across the table from me. I don't know.
I love garlic too. I could
Yeah.
eat, whole heads at one sitting, and it's perfect just like this. So going along that theme with the white pizza, you can use caramelized onions topped with some grilled zucchini and some fresh thyme. Very simple and lovely. For a Japanese-inspired pizza, you can spread the crust with edamame pesto. That's a recipe that's on my blog. It's just soybeans, edamame, some garlic, basil, and salt, topped with steamed asparagus spears and mushrooms that have been sautéed in a little bit of soy and maybe some ginger or sesame oil, whatever you like. For a roasted vegetable pizza, squash, zucchini, cauliflower, whatever you have on hand, roasted. And that gets drizzled with cashew crema. And crema is a sort of Mexican-style table cream. It tastes a lot like sour cream, but it's pourable. So if you've been waiting for sour cream or if the soy versions are just not great, the cashew crema is really something nice to try. Drizzle that over. You can do a margarita pizza with heirloom tomatoes, avocado, fresh basil, and ground pine nuts. And finally, for a very American sort of pie, you can spread the crust with vegan ranch, top it with seitan or tempeh bacon, some corn that's been shucked fresh from the cob, and green onions. Now, this is a nod to a recipe that's in testing right now that's really popular, and that's a barbecue ranch salad.
Oh,
That is so good.
Yeah, so if you drizzle this with a bit of barbecue sauce, it won't be worse for it. So you've got all your toppings together. You've got pizza dough and this great garlic-infused olive oil. And to begin, you're going to heat charcoal, in your outdoor grill, and just get it to the point where the coals are white and they're just starting to decline in the heat. So you don't want it quite at the hottest point. You want it going down a bit. And if you've got a gas grill, just put it on medium. That's fine. So as you heat it, allow your guests to prepare their own dough. Just divide it and give each person a handful. So they're doing it themselves. And they can roll it out or do what I really prefer to do, and that's tossing and stretching and pulling it themselves. It's really nice to see your guests at a dinner party walking around with handfuls of dough tossed in the air. So this is a really nice way to do it, and it yields these nice bubbles of, thick dough interspersed with crispier, thinner areas. And if you get a hole, it's no problem. Just don't put any topping there. This is such a great dish for children to do because you really can't make any mistakes, and it's fun to make different shapes with your pizza dough. So when the coals are the temperature that you want, just slap the dough on the grill, cover it for a minute, and let it puff up, and the bottom will also stiffen slightly. Uncover it, brush the top with the garlic-infused olive oil, and you're going to flip it over so the top will become the bottom. It should have slight grill marks on it when you flip it over. And to flip, you can just use tongs or 2 spatulas or your hands. That's what I usually use. And brush the top with more olive oil. Now, you have to work really quickly as you add the toppings because the pizza will cook relatively fast. So don't overload your pizza with toppings. This is a little bit different than your typical New York or Chicago-style pizza in that it's not covered with toppings. You're a little more spare here. So once you get the toppings on, whatever you like, whatever's offered, cover and cook for 1 to 2 more minutes. And covering is so great because apart from helping everything cook more evenly on the top and the bottom, it kind of fragrances the dough with this nice smoky perfume that you can't get in the oven.
Yeah.
So just remove from the grill, drizzle with more of that garlic olive oil, and serve.
Wow. That sounds so good.
Definitely.
Sounds
And you can
fantastic.
also cook this indoors if you want to, and I'll include instructions for that on my blog. I know that the weather is not conducive everywhere to grilling outdoors, so you can cook it in a conventional oven if you like.
So it could warm up the folks who are experiencing winter this time of year in the southern hemisphere.
That's a perfect idea.
Cool. And you were talking about kids making their pizzas into shapes. My friends would probably come and make their pizzas into vulgar shapes.
I'm thinking that's not a bad idea either.
Okay, so there was I'm sorry, go ahead.
It's like exotic cake bakeries, you know? You can have exotic grilled pizza.
There you go.
Excellent. So you had mentioned there was another part yet to the party. What?
Dessert.
Yes, dessert. My favorite thing. This is an Italian cornmeal cake. It's this wonderful, dense, coarse-crumbed cake that's utterly foolproof. So if you don't like baking or you use too rough of a hand when you're combining things or whatever, it doesn't really matter here.
See, that's me. I am the worst. I'm not a very good baker. I'm a pretty decent cook, but I can't bake because I'm more of the just like to kind of go by feel and all. But you can't do that with baking because you just fail.
It's very precise for those of us who are really perfectionists and sort of agitating in every other area.
See that? Yeah, that's why I do the baking because I like to measure everything out.
I just
So it
can't.
works. It
I
works
can't
for
be.
us.
I can't be bothered. I just get that's close enough to a cup. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
But this is great for that. It's just perfect if you want to slapdash something together and have it still taste good at the end. I just used this recipe for my husband's birthday cake and filled it with lemon curd and strawberries and then frosted it with white chocolate buttercream. And it was great. Or you can just serve it as it is with tea, and it's also really nice. So very versatile. So you start by whisking together some non-dairy milk, sugar, oil, lemon juice, and vanilla. Just let that sit for a moment. And then in another bowl, whisk together flour, some cornmeal. I use yellow cornmeal, and you can use coarse or fine. I've even used corn flour, which is different from what they have as corn flour in the UK, but corn flour in the U.S.
Like masa?
Yeah,
Okay.
similar to that. So it can be very coarse or very fine. Some baking powder, baking soda, and salt. And just kind of whisk those together, agitate it until you don't see any lumps anymore, and pour it into an oiled, floured pan, a loaf pan. Now, I like adding parchment to the bottom of pans just because then I know that it will never stick and I don't have to worry about it. So that gets baked in a 350-degree oven for 50 to 55 minutes. Oh, and something really nice that you can do with this. You can do this with any cake. Once you've got the batter poured into the pan, to infuse it with herbs and fragrance the whole cake in a way that's not strong or overpowering. Just take a sprig of herbs, fresh herbs, like rosemary or lavender or thyme. I recommend using rosemary here. And gently lay it on top of the batter. And as it bakes, it'll just kind of waft through the whole oven. So really simple.
wow.
Cool that cake.
Fantastic. Sorry.
What's that?
Sounds great.
Oh, thank you. So cool the cake and store it for up to 2 days. Really easy. Wrap it in plastic, room temperature. And when you want to serve this, slice it into thick slices. You should get about 8 slices out of this, I think. And coat it very thickly with powdered sugar and pine nuts. And if you want, you can add some seasonal fruit or sorbet or ice cream or whatever you like. So there you go. You have a really simple meal, perfect for entertaining, of a savory salad, some grilled pizza with a lot of interesting toppings, and a very simple Italian cornmeal cake.
That sounds incredible. It makes me want to have people over and
Good.
just to try these out. I mean, it sounds too good to just eat the two of us ourselves.
No, it doesn't. More for us.
Yeah, if you make it for 4, then you'll just have leftovers, or you can gorge
true.
yourself at one meal.
Good point.
That's great. So, man, what an incredible! That sounds like an incredible meal to get together, and it doesn't sound like it would be hugely difficult to pull it together. When you're like cleaning your house and get everything all sorted out. It sounds like the kind of thing you could really pull together in advance, and you could actually spend time with your guests. Because a lot of times we have people over, I end up spending a lot of time in the kitchen cooking, and I don't really see people.
Yeah.
So that's
I think
nice.
that's the biggest problem. When we have people over, we end up at the last minute doing something really intense and crazy, and we're just harried and not in the right frame of mind to welcome people. So when you do something where all the elements get taken care of ahead of time, you don't have to worry about that. And another thing I really like to do when my guests come over is leave some things undone, like something simple that you don't mind if they mess it up, but like, hey, come over here, chop this onion, put this in this bowl. It's a good way to get people mingling and kind of make the atmosphere a little bit more casual.
That's
So
cool.
leave some things undone.
Perfect.
Wow. And so is this the kind of philosophy, would you say that this kind of philosophy that you've talked about here, is the same kind of philosophy that pervades your cookbook?
I think it is. There's a deep sense of community involvement, wanting to share sort of different cultures with people to open people up to things they might not have considered before. And I think it's all part of that, getting people involved in food in a really tangible way.
Excellent. We talked about the last half of the title of your cookbook, The Exotic and the Everyday, but why is it Cook, Eat, Live?
It's Cook, Eat, Live, I think, just because cooking is something that is so ingrained for most of us to do it a certain way. And once we become vegan, we tend to be sometimes we feel limited in our choices, but we really shouldn't. The options that we have are so much broader than we might have imagined. And I think using fresh, seasonal, whole ingredients really gives you something wonderful. So I think it's about enjoying all three of those elements, cooking with friends, with family, eating and enjoying it together, and living, because we're vegan. We're not creating the kind of destruction. We can do this with confidence that we are adding something really good and wonderful to the world.
Well, what a beautiful way to end it. That is incredible. Is there anything else you would like to add before we close it out?
No, I just think as vegans, it's kind of our opportunity to show the rest of the world. It's a form of activism to give them something tangible that they can enjoy through food.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
So, Joy's cookbook will be out before the Christmas or winter buying season, if all goes well, and I think it will. And you can find out, you can get those recipes from Joy at veganjoy.blogspot.com, and I'm sure you can get in touch with Joy over there. And we're very happy to be working with you on this cookbook, and we're really pleased that you're able to come on the show. And we will have you back again when your book comes out to talk in more depth about some of the cool recipes you have going on there and all that. So I think this is a phenomenal cookbook, and I'm very much looking forward to having it out.
Thank you. Thanks. I've really enjoyed being on.
We are here with Dino Sarma, who is the author of the cookbook Alternative Vegan, and who is a frequent guest on Vegan Freak Radio, although we haven't had him on in a while, and it's good to have him back. Hello, Dino.
Hi, Jenna. It's really good to be back.
Hey, Dino.
Hi, Bob.
Welcome back.
Thanks to you guys, of course. During that hiatus, I started my own podcast.
And where can someone find that podcast?
On the iTunes Store under Alternative Vegan or on alternativevegan.com. Bob just said, okay, Dino, whatever you want, we'll make it happen. And you've been wonderful. Thank you so much. And so far, so good. I've gotten some emails saying, they're enjoying it and that kind of thing.
So there you go. So you can go find Dino on his own podcast.
Excellent, if you need a Dino fix.
So, Dino, we were hoping just have you on and maybe talk about some of the things you've been cooking lately. So give us a sense of what you've been into these days.
Well, for the past week or so, I've had one of my really close friends from Florida. Her brother was up in the Northeast, so he came to visit. And he's ready to go vegan, so I've been taking him through, those really quick and easy ones, like, where you do that really fast black bean soup. you start off with the cumin and the coriander and the sesame seeds and hot oil, then you add the onions, then you add the tomatoes, then you add the black beans, and, you cook them all down for a few minutes and add some rice in there and you're done. And it's been basically like really quick and easy stuff like that, partly because it's so bloody hot in the summer. I don't really feel like turning on the stove.
Sure.
Yeah. So you're talking about, if I do anything in the oven, I do like 5 or 6 things at the same time. Like when I bake my plantains, with the spices and the rest of it on there, like what I like to do is add some cumin powder and turmeric powder and a little bit of coriander powder with a little bit of oil, and I toss it with a few pounds of plantains and I throw it in the oven. But while I'm doing that, I figure, why not just, bake a cake or something, or do a pie, or do a couple of things at the same time, so that by the time I'm done, got a whole meal out.
So you've only made the house hot for one afternoon rather than for like 3 or 4 afternoons.
Exactly. And trust me when I say that this microwave thing has really become a godsend, because every time, I turn on the stove, it seems like the entire house gets hot. It's something I didn't realize about living in New York, is that the apartments are smaller, so heat travels really fast.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, fucking sucks. But by and large, I've been really turned on by the produce that I'm finding, mainly because I can eat it raw, you know what I mean?
Sure.
Especially in the summer, I find that with the salads that I've been making, I notice that I don't even need to add, olive oil or anything. It's fine with just lemon juice and some salt, and I'm good to go.
Sounds good. So
yeah.
You were talking about making plátanos or plantains or whatever you want to call them. Not everybody can kind of find those in their local grocery stores. Do you have other things that maybe, we could find in any grocery store, some advice for things like that?
Sweet potatoes work just as well as, when I said that recipe with the plantains where you add the cumin, the coriander, the oil, the turmeric, and then you toss it together and you throw it in the oven. That works for pretty much any kind of starchy vegetable. Yuca, sweet potatoes work really well. Yams work really well. There's also calabaza and all those other great pumpkins. I found that acorn squash and butternut squash works really well with that same technique where, you don't really need too much fancy stuff going on. Basically because those 3 spices, the turmeric, the coriander, and the cumin, bring out so many undertones of other smokiness and other flavors from so many different vegetables that you kind of don't even have to be creative with spicing. You could use the same spices and things come out so much differently. And it's so wonderful,
Cool.
Excellent.
I found that sometimes when I'm running low on spices, that's what I end up doing, because I don't really feel like going to the store and getting some. So, those root vegetables that I was talking about, that's the kind of thing you want to have on hand for really quick dinner or really elaborate dinner, because then it looks like you've gone to a lot of trouble to put a lot of stuff together, even though, everything tastes different. It was the same basic spice mixture,
Sure. And so you serve it as a side dish, or is it part of a main part of the meal?
Or main part of a meal. I find that with the starchier vegetables, like the sweet potatoes or the yams or the squashes or things like that, I tend to prefer them with either pasta or rice or bread. I prefer not to have them alone. But with plantains and things like that, I find that they're great just on their own.
One of the things that people always tell us about your cookbook is that it helped them not to feel fearful about cooking. Yeah. And so what kind of advice would you have for people out there who maybe are on that precipice, on that cusp of getting ready to do some cooking, but they think, man, this stuff is so complicated? And we've asked other people about this who are on the show as well. And I think it'd be kind of fun to get all the different feedback about how to get going with cooking if you haven't learned how to cook growing up, if you're really new to it.
Right. If you're really, really brand new to it, start with something that you really can't screw up. My first fail-safe recipe that I did when I was really, really young was the potatoes in the oven thing, where, I chopped up the potatoes, and this is something that my mother, taught me to do in the microwave because, sometimes she'd be late coming home from running errands or whatever, and she wanted me to be able to heat up something really quick. She wouldn't let me use the stove, but when I was like 6 or 7 years old, she would let me on the microwave. But, when she was there, it was fine. When she's not there, it's not so fine. So, chop up a potato, throw on a little bit of spices, throw it in the microwave for about 4 minutes, and you really can't fuck it up. And then from there, you start building out, okay, maybe it's not just a potato next time, try some potatoes and broccoli. Maybe next time try some potatoes and beans, or leave the potato out altogether, try some different vegetables. Point being that I find that if you're not a good cook and you're really nervous about screwing things up, you don't want your first time around to be in the oven or on the stove, just because they require so much babysitting and they take a little bit longer to cook, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with a microwave, you're done in about 5-6 minutes or so you can see immediate results.
Excellent. So you can start to get to know your vegetables better.
Right. Your vegetables and your beans and pretty much anything else. Like a really quick bean recipe is to do jarred tomato sauce, like from, just from the store, get some jarred tomato sauce, combine it with a couple of tins of beans, and throw in about a tablespoon or so of curry powder. You don't need any fat. You don't need any salt. You don't need anything because it's already, fully flavored in there. Throw it in the microwave for about 5 minutes and then serve it over hot rice. And it is really good. Because like that same technique that I told you in the beginning of this episode where I was talking about you start with the spices and the onions and the tomatoes and all the rest of it, they've already done that for you with the jarred tomato sauce. And you get to sort of, have a really quick shortcut. So like, maybe you're still nervous about, making all these things from scratch because you've burned so many of them before. Try it in the microwave and, let it go for about 3 or 4 minutes at a time. Don't set the microwave to go for more than about 4 minutes because you don't want to have too much splattering or burning or anything. So, let it go at 4-minute increments. Then when it's done, you're done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sounds great. Nice, quick, easy, and healthy.
Very easy, very healthy. And again, that same recipe, you don't have to stop just there. You use different kinds of beans, use different kinds of sauces. I mean, sky's the limit,
Excellent. Anything else interesting? Anything else interesting you've been cooking lately?
The neat thing is that I've started taking some of those traditional Indian recipes like masala dosa, and I've been switching out the other starch for them. Traditionally, it calls for potatoes, and I've tried them with plantains, and they've come out really well. I've tried them with yuca. They've come out really well. Yams, they've come out really well. It's like I've been experimenting with a lot of the traditional recipes that I have in the cookbook, and instead of, using, let's say, the full-fat version, I'll either cut out the fat entirely or cut back on the fat drastically, just to see if it'll work. And I've noticed that so much of the recipes in the cookbook really don't require the fat unless, you've never, ever cooked before and you need that fat so that your food doesn't burn.
Mm-hmm. You should mention what masala dosa.
Yes, masala dosa is that it's that rice paper. Sorry, it's that rice crepe with the potato stuffing.
It's delicious.
It's so good.
Coconut chutney.
It's one of the only things that I will order when I go out to eat because I won't make it at home.
Sure, it seems like it's a lot easier to get somebody else to make it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know how to make dosa at home, and my dosa is really good, but it's never going to be quite the same thinness, and it's never going to be that same crispiness like the one I'd get from the store. So that's one of the few things I'd say, you know what, just have someone else make it because you're not going to be that good because I'm not even that good.
But you could just make like you said, you could just make, without making the whole dosa, which is like the kind of a very large pancake thing, right?
Yeah.
Without that, you could just kind of make the innards of that.
The innards.
The stuffing, whatever you want to call it.
The stuffing, and then stuff it into a burrito shell or something like that and just bake it off real quick.
That sounds pretty good.
The stuffing is really easy. It's just pretty much mustard seed and turmeric, lots of ginger, some onions, and potatoes. And I think that was I don't think there's too terribly much other than that. The main thing to remember with that is that you want to get a waxy potato, like a boiling potato rather than a baking potato.
Like a red potato.
They stay together better.
Uh-huh.
And you don't want to cook them in one fell swoop. You want to make sure that you boil them first. Actually, you never want to boil potatoes. You want to simmer them until they're tender all the way through. Then let them come down to room temperature, take off the skin. Then, make that second step of cooking. It's that, resting phase in between that makes sure that it doesn't become this big mush.
Mm-hmm.
That mushy, it's not very pleasant when, the whole thing falls apart. We're not looking for mashed potatoes. We're looking for, masala potatoes, which are completely different. And I think, Bob, I sent you the recipe.
Yeah, I'll send it out with our newsletter.
Yes, that would be very awesome. With that one, definitely start experimenting with the other starchy vegetables because you don't want to stop with just potatoes. There's so many other starches out there that are triply healthy as potatoes and that are equally delicious when they're cooked up with the same exact method, because that particular method is very versatile. You know what I mean? I can use that for beans, or I can use it for potatoes, or I can use it for pretty much anything I want.
Very cool.
Making me hungry.
Yeah, I know. I'm sitting here thinking.
I should be.
I'm sitting here thinking, I wonder if I can. I'm doing a mental inventory of the things we have in the house and thinking, can I make that for dinner tonight?
If you do make it for dinner, might I suggest some added greens on top?
Ooh, that sounds especially good.
That
It
does.
would be triply good, because I find that with those masala potatoes, the texture is kind of monochromatic, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever I have some extra spinach or kale or collard green, I'll just chop it up really quick. This is one of the few times when I would say take out the stems from your leafy greens. I mean, you know how most of the time I'm very adamant about don't throw stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
This is one of the very few times where I say just take out the stems and use them for something else, and just like chop up the leaves really quick and let them cook with the potatoes. You know, when you make the final step of cooking, for about like 5-10 minutes, let them get tender all the way through, and they are so much better than the original.
Cool. And what have you been
Another
talking?
thing that works weirdly enough is corn. Don't ask why. I just really like corn and potatoes together.
Yeah, that's
It is good stuff.
That is really good. I don't think I've ever had corn in Indian food.
I know. I mean, it doesn't seem like it would work, but then I don't think potatoes are native to India either.
Oh no, they're from the New World.
Yeah.
Right. So I think corn would go better with potatoes than other Indian food, right?
True, I would think. Good point. So what kind of things have you been talking about on your podcast lately, Dino?
I've been the first episode. I think I was talking about temperature control, where you don't want to just crank your stove up on high and start using it throughout. You want to make sure you're controlling temperature. Then one of the episodes I covered all the different kinds of herbs and what are some of the most common methods of using them. I talked about party planning.
I said smoking them, dude. Sorry. Go ahead. Common methods of herbs. Go ahead.
If you insist on smoking herbs, I would suggest smoking sage out, inside your house to purify it, or something, some hippie thing where you burn sage makes it cleaner or something.
No, but seriously, using herbs. Go ahead.
No, I'm talking about herb. When you think of certain herbs, you always think of one thing, and then you think of the second thing, and then sometimes there's a certain unusual thing that you do with it. With that particular, like for example, with basil, you would think first thing is pesto, second thing is marinara sauce, and then maybe something unusual would be to use it as a salad green. So for all the different herbs that I could think of, I went through all those steps. I was like, here's the first thing I think of, the second thing, and then something unusual that you can try, later on. And I think that one's a really good one, because I made like a little Excel chart that you can print up at
Wow.
home and leave it on your fridge.
Hot damn.
Yeah, I've gotten nerdy, Bob. Can you believe it?
I know. I was just thinking, what do you mean gotten nerdy? You've been nerdy as long as I've known you.
Just because I made the IRC channel doesn't mean I'm a nerd.
There you go.
But that's the kind of stuff that I'm trying to hit, where I love the segments on you guys' show, but sometimes I don't always have as much time
Sure.
to explain in detail as I would like to. So what I do is that I would take a concept that I really feel should be explained for a full 30 minutes or whatever, however long it takes. They're about 30 minutes long, most of them.
Excellent. And people can find those over at alternativevegan.com, is that right?
AlternativeVegan.com or Alternative Vegan on iTunes. I am trying to slow down how fast I'm speaking, just because I have extra time on my own podcast. I can take as long as I want. But understand that, this is still me you're talking about. So I'm going to be excited about food. I'm going to be talking fast. You're going to get sucked into the whole thing like you normally do.
Well, cool. And, it's your excitement coming through. So, and the nice thing about a podcast is people can pause it and go back.
Exactly.
So if you're going too fast, they can slow down and go back and listen to it again.
Yes, listen to me many times.
Well, we really appreciate being on the show, Dino. People can, of course, you can find all of Dino's stuff over at alternativevegan.com. His cookbook is available on Amazon and a couple other places. You can find it.
And my personal blog is altveg.blogspot.com.
So there you go. You can find everything you need to know about Dino, and some of the recipes he talked about we will enclose. I'll figure out a way to get them out. Either I'm going to do them in the email to all the people that are on the list, and or on our site. So we'll see.
That'll be great. Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Hey, thanks, Dino.
Thanks for
Really
being on.
appreciate it.
Yes, I hope not to be a stranger in the future.
Yes.
Later.
Okay, we want to thank Dino, Dreena, and Joy. Okay, I didn't say Dina.
Not Dina.
It's hard, Dino, Dreena. It's really hard to say that.
Well, we should just say Dreena, Joy, Dino.
There you go.
It's really hard. That's kind of hard to
It's
say,
hard,
too. Dreena, Joy, Dino. Dreena, Joy... Oh.
Dino, Joy, Dreena. That's easier. It's okay, Bob. We're done now.
Okay. I just feel like I'm tampering in dark side stuff when I try to say those three names together. I cannot do it. Anyway, thank you. You should, if you don't have any, if you don't have Dreena's cookbooks, you should go get them because they're a staple in our house. I mean, like we're always cooking stuff out of those.
Definitely.
And Dino's cookbook, if you don't have that, you should too.
Yes.
And you can't get Joy's cookbook yet.
Not yet.
But soon.
Ha ha ha.
So, yes, and you should visit their blogs and you should leave them nice comments. Don't be a troll.
No.
So many people on the internet are trolls. Don't be a troll. Just because you're anonymous doesn't mean you should be an ass. Be a nice person. Remember, there's someone else on the other side of that. And leave a nice comment. Tell people how much you like them.
Because they all did a great job at explaining some of the things that you could be cooking right now.
Absolutely. So let us know how it goes. We hope you get out there and do cook some of this stuff and treat the people around you to wonderful and beautiful dinners and lunches and all that crap too. So, indeed. I was wondering why, I didn't feel like the show was done and I forgot to play the out theme.
That's why.
Because I'm having a hard time putting food on my family.
Food on your family. You're working hard to put food on your family.
A lot of people are working hard to put food on their family these
They
days.
are.
I mean,
Working real hard, extra hard.
They are indeed. Anyway, we're going to shut up now.
Okay.
I think we are. And
Next time we'll be back with voicemails and emails and rantiness as usual.
absolutely, there's a lot to rant about. There's so many articles
There are.
that had come. And I want to thank all of you who send them to us. I don't always write to each of you, but thank you for sending those things to us because I've been reading some of the things that some of the links you've been forwarding us, and oh my god.
Insanity. So, yes, thank you once again for listening.
And-
VeganFreakRadio.com,
Go ahead.
is that our email?
You don't even know our URL. You don't even know our URL.
I do. It's just I have it bookmarked.
You don't know our URL.
267-295-1944. I know our phone number.
You don't know our Earl's gonna be mad at you. Oh man. Jeez.
Show at veganfreakradio.com.
Jeez.
Well, you usually do this.
I'm working so hard to put food on our family, and you can't even remember the URL. Jeez. Anyway, we got show 100 coming up.
Yeah.
What's wrong, Dad?
Nothing.
I'm just teasing you.
I know.
Relax. We got show 100 coming up. I don't know what we're gonna do, and I hope we haven't built it up for no reason.
Yeah, I hope we have.
We're getting some very strange
Uh-huh.
and some good ideas. Anyway, we'll be back next week.
Bye.
Bye.
What if a monkey made you a sandwich? Would you eat it then?